Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Shark Reaver, also known as Samurai at Tournaments. This is going to be a little bit different from the usual kind of content that I make, as I wanted to focus less on gameplay and more just about commentary, because I feel like you guys haven't heard a lot of me, right? This is going to be one of my first official, more well produced videos, and I hope you enjoy. So, I would like to talk about improvement in video games. I personally feel that not a lot of people really make content, or I guess you could say videos, Twitter posts, that kind of stuff, about what it means to improve at a really small level. Just for reference, I have been not necessarily professional, but I've been a competitive fighting game player for 2 or 3 years now, dipping my toes into weeklies, locals, just kind of going to, monthly semi-major tournaments, stuff like that. And it's been a really eye-opening experience for me, not just as a fighting game player, but as a just personal experience. And I just wanted to kind of talk about that today. The first thing I wanted to outline is that I am not a well-renowned professional. I am not a therapist. I am not any kind of well-trained individual designed to help you with the problems that you're having. But one thing I do have is experience struggling with depression and struggling to just improve and feel like my improvement means something and matters. And I feel that's something that almost all new competitive players or just people in general deal with. So, just to start it off, I think the first point we should review is understanding that you are not the best, and that's okay. You know what I mean? When you first pick up a game, let's say a fighting game, for example, like Tekken, you know what I mean? Every game is very different. And if you get into shooters and move to fighters, or vice versa, you're going to be dipping your toes, from cold water to hot water. It's going to be a very different experience, and it's going to take a lot of time to adjust. And that is why it's really important to recognize that small steps should be, I guess, appreciated and recognized as improvement personally. You know? Like, just learning a combo in a fighting game. You first start, you boot up the game for 3 or 4 hours, you jump into practice mode, you learn all the characters' moves, and you kind of get the basics. Maybe you even play some online matches, and you get your butt kicked. It happens to everybody. It happens to the pros. Everybody starts somewhere, right? And don't be disheartened by this. It's part of improvement. It's part of knowing the game, getting better. You're going to get knowledge checked, regardless of what game you play. If you don't know what that is, it's just somebody having more information than you, knowing what they're capable of doing and what you're capable of doing and how to adjust their playstyle around that. This is the first big step in a lot of people's careers as a competitive, gamer, I guess you could say, is knowledge, learning, adjusting, kind of developing your own personal style of gaming. And it can be really hard to find your roots, what you enjoy, what works for you. But please never, ever try to, turn away from experimenting. You can look up a video and find out what's the most optimal possible thing, and that's perfectly fine. You can play as optimally as possible and you can be really good at the game, but I feel it is important for any kind of person who wants to be a professional or wants to be better at their game to experiment, mess around. Maybe it's not optimal, maybe it's not the perfect strategy. But what it is it's important to recognize that sometimes the perfect strategy isn't correct. Like, it isn't the right way to do things. Like, for example, in fighting games, a dragon punch, if anybody knows what that is an invincible move that can be used on waking up to counter hit somebody. It's a really good move, but it can be blocked. Technically speaking, it would be the most optimal decision to use it on every wake up because it's invincible, right? So you're always going to catch people pressing buttons. But that's not the case. Sometimes people can block it and you can be punished. And this is where experimentation comes in. Don't get comfortable with all of your really good tools. Use some of the more unknown ones. Tekken is a great example for this. For example, I play Brian Fury. You can totally get through the whole game using, 1 2 1 2 3 pokes, and 1 3 10 frame punishes, and you can combo all sorts of stuff, and you can counter hit back one, and you can all do all sorts of, I guess back two actually. You can play the counter hit poke game with Brian really well, but I mean, people are expecting you to do that, right? And if you don't know how to use your lesser used tools, then you're putting yourself at a deficit. You know what I mean? And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it really doesn't work out. Like, for example, I remember I was playing Tekken just the other day online, and I was like, let's do a snake edge. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a very slow moving low that typically launches, but if it's blocked, it's very, very punishable, which means I'm going to be put in a bad situation. And I was like, I'm playing this game pretty safe. I'm using the good tools, but I don't think he's going to know that I'm going to use a snake edge. And I swing it, and it worked out. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but when it does, it's like a high risk, high reward kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that is another kind of topic I'd like to break into here, since I'm getting a little off topic, right? Is high risk and high reward. This could be brought around to any aspect of your life. Playing it safe is great, and it works out for a lot of people. But from personal experience, you have to take the first step in any situation. For example, I played online fighting games a lot. I did. I played a whole bunch of them all the time. I put hundreds of hours into games like Dragon Ball FighterZ and Tekken and Guilty Gear. And then I was like, I feel like my gameplay is stale. And I was like, wow, I am just not winning as much as I would like to, or I'm not improving as I would like to. And I was like, let's take a risk. Let's go out to weeklies. Let's try and meet new people and see how I feel. And I went to a weekly, and I got my butt kicked. I went to a weekly for about a month straight, and I got my butt kicked every single time, and it sucked. It did, and the risk involved in that was going out and losing and losing and losing and losing and losing and losing, and it sucks. It really does. But the reward I got from that was I learned. You learn by losing. You can learn by winning too, but there's no better way to improve at any kind of game than getting beaten by somebody. If they beat you, it's because you made a wrong decision. Why did you make that decision? When did you make that decision? What did they use to punish you making that decision? All information that you cannot get unless you lose. You know what I mean? Sometimes going for high risk, high reward in games isn't really necessary, but I feel that people, when you just swing it, as you might say, can learn so much more than just playing it safe. Like if you just sit there and hold block the entire time, you're never going to win. Sometimes you have to press buttons. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone, get out of your shell. I have social anxiety. Going to a weekly for me was really difficult, having to meet and greet with new people I've never met before, people who are not sharing the same hobby as me, or just are come from different walks of life. I was uncomfortable with that idea, but because I went forward and I did that, I became an infinitely better player. You know what I mean? I went out and I learned and I practiced and I played with other people. And I think that's a good time to transition on to my next point, and that is, don't be afraid to ask people in the community for help. This is very important. Starting out, or even if you hit that mid-level where you feel like you're plateauing at a game and you don't know where to go next, YouTube videos can teach you an infinite amount of knowledge. They can, but there's no better way to truly learn than from another human being, face-to-face, person-to-person, or even just online, playing a couple of games. They are going to notice things that you just have not noticed. That's just what it comes down to. You can analyze your gameplay a million times over, and maybe you just don't see something that someone else can see and just be like blatantly like, hey, you should do this instead. It'd be a lot better for you. It'd work out. Or I feel this strategy matches with your play style. You kind of, it's not necessary. You don't have to. There are people who work really well by themselves, in the lab, cooking up some good combos, that kind of stuff. But I, from personal experience, think that if you are starting out in the fighting game community, or just as a player in general, Valorant, League of Legends, etc., it is a really good idea to Find a Discord server. Find people nearby. If you have like gaming cafes in your area, find people who play your game. You don't have to make friends. You don't have to if you don't want to, but find people who you play your game and just ask them for advice. Play some games with them. Like sit down, run some sets, ask them for advice. Never be afraid to ask somebody for advice. If you're playing a game with somebody, half the time they're going to be totally okay with helping you. If they're better than you, they're better than you for a reason. And it is more than fine. You should never feel bad for being like, hey, what can I do better? Was there any outstanding problems with my gameplay? How was my game plan? All of these questions you could ask somebody. Nobody's going to get mad at you for asking them. You know what I mean? I had to go through this personally. I was very, very afraid to ask players at my locals for help and advice. I was horribly afraid of it. I was like, I'm so bad. What if they're like, oh no, I'm not going to teach this guy anything. He's going to know my strategies. Nobody thinks like that. Nobody thinks like that. And if they do, they're thinking wrong, to be frank with you. Okay? It's not no, yeah, it's not that it's not that hard. It is difficult. It is difficult to get out of your comfort zone and ask somebody something, but it is worth your while. Coming back to high risk, high reward, you are taking a risk asking somebody something, but half the time it's gonna be worth your while, worth your time, worth your effort, and it's gonna make you a better player. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You know what I mean? Like it's perfectly fine to know and recognize that you don't know that thing or you don't have that knowledge, but this person does. Take their knowledge, do it, take it, steal it. And I would kind of like to round this out with once you hit that mid to high level gameplay, optimizing, that kind of stuff, you're gonna hit a plateau. Every single player does. The best players in the world hit a plateau, After you've gone through all the stuff, asking for help, improving your gameplay, making sure to take the small steps in improving, like just doing combos, very basic stuff. After you've gone through this whole process, you go to weeklies, maybe you've even made friends at your weeklies or your communities, you're in a Discord server now, you play games with them all the time, and you're steadily improving. But what you need to do now is take a step back. Sometimes taking a break is a great idea. If you're plateauing really heavily and you're getting upset and you're getting angry that you're not getting better like you were, like your improvement is just not skyrocketing like it was a few months ago, take a step back. Just take a break. Set down the controller or the keyboard, fight stick, Mixbox, whatever you use. Take a step back and recognize that sometimes you need to look at the bigger picture. Maybe you're focusing too much on your gameplay or you're trying to copy someone else's too heavily. Look at yourself from a third-person perspective and say, what am I doing? Recognize what you are doing as a player and try to recognize how it can be improved. Or maybe you are, for example, let's say myself, for example. I play Leo Whitefang in Guilty Gear Strive. When I was kind of plateauing, at the mid-level, I realized that I was relying too heavily on Dragon Punch. Now, in a game, when I am sitting there and I'm Dragon Punching and it's hitting, it's landing, it's doing it really well, and it's working every single time, awesome, and then I hit, floor 10, just below the top level, I realized that people are reading this, like, oh no, people are blocking this, people are calling me out, they're calling out my habits. I was like, why is that happening? Why do I keep Dragon Punching? Why am I doing that? It's because sometimes, subconsciously, you're just doing it because it's worked previously, and that's what taking a break is meant for. Sometimes just walking backwards, looking at yourself and being like, wow, that was not a good decision. And then just kind of, fixing it. You know what I mean? Sometimes taking a week or two off, relaxing, kicking it, maybe playing a different game or watching a different player or meeting some new people is always a great idea. And then getting back into the game and being like, I'm prepared. I am ready for this. You know what I mean? And it's difficult to do. It's really hard to kind of take a step back and recognize your own habits and work on fixing them. It is. I won't say that it isn't. It's hard. But that is what improvement is about. Once you've taken the small steps, the big ones, and once they get even bigger and bigger, it's going to be more difficult, more strenuous, but it becomes more and more worthwhile. You know what I mean? Improvement isn't about just being the best or, being better and better. It is about fixing the small things And eventually, all those small things turn into one really big thing. For example, Rome wasn't built in a day. You know, you aren't going to become, you know, like you're not going to be the next Hotashi if you've only been playing for 5 or 6 days and you just hit Celestial floor or something like that in Guilty. You're awesome. You've just hit the bottom rung of professional play, and now you've got a long way to go. There's always room for improvement, and it's difficult. It's hard, and sometimes it's depressing to take a step back and look at yourself and be like, "Wow, I really did that. Man, that was a horrible decision." But never demote yourself, I guess you could say. Dote on yourself. Be like, "Wow, that was a bad decision. This is how I can do it better." Don't focus on what you did wrong. Focus on what you can do right. This is something that helped me a lot in games. You know what I mean? And I won't say that I am some god tier Leo player or I'm no Jimmy J Tran when it comes to Brian. You know what I mean? I'm still improving too. And honestly, I have faith in anyone that's watching this. Anybody who's playing any kind of game can improve at any level, even at the top level. You know what I mean? There's always room for improvement. And you, as a person, are more than capable of doing that. You, as a human being, are impossibly intelligent. There are hundreds upon thousands of possibilities. There are always ways to improve: resources, people, games. You can improve in a video game, and you can improve as an individual. It is a difficult path to walk, but I am more than confident that every single person on this planet can improve. And it just takes a little bit of extra work, and sometimes that work sucks, but it is worth your while. The risk reward is always worth it to take a step forward. Anyways, this is kind of the end of the rant here. I just really felt like I needed to just kind of get that off my chest, I guess you could say. Just talk about what it's like to improve and what it feels like. And I appreciate you guys. If you made it all the way through the video, that's fantastic. I can't thank you enough for the support. Just go ahead and drop a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I'm not too worried about it. But to be honest, I'm wishing for the best for anyone that watches this video. I really hope that you take this advice to heart and focus hard on improving. And hey, maybe I'll see you at the next Evo, right? Well, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. And this is Samurai logging out.